I mean, the main thing everybody said the last console generation was Xbox doesn't have games. So last year I was in shock and awe when Xbox went out and purchased Bethesda or ZeniMax for $7.5 billion. That's billion with a B. And that bought games like Doom, Wolfenstein, and soon Starfield to Xbox and Xbox Game Pass. Fast forward about a couple of months, and here we are hearing about Xbox buying another game developer. And not just any game developer. We're talking Activision, Blizzard, Treyarch. And that's not the crazy part about it. The crazy thing is they are paying $65 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars for this particular game developer. I mean, $65 billion. Xbox doesn't have walking around money. They have like, we need to keep our money in the bank type of money. So if this goes down, this would have to be one of the largest video game company acquisitions in like the history of history, right? Now, don't get me wrong. PlayStation, they have a lot of quality developers. I mean, PlayStation, you guys do a wonderful job. But games like Call of Duty, Diablo, StarCraft, Candy Crush, I mean, and a host of other games. That's a lot of games from one developer. And little companies like Treyarch and Infinity Ward and Demonware. Now, on the flip side of that, Xbox purchasing Activision, we can say that PlayStation actually has made a move as far as going forward to buy Bungie. And if you guys aren't familiar with Bungie, Bungie is the original creator of the original Halo. And also they are the creator of Destiny. I mean, and Destiny 2, we can imagine why PlayStation bought Bungie was because it brings that many more players over to their platform. What is the end game for companies buying or console makers buying these companies, these video game developers? What's the end game? Now, I have a theory. I always say that Xbox Game Pass is like the Netflix of gaming. Xbox needs to keep new games coming to the Xbox platform so it can get money from people like you and I. I mean, if you don't have any games, then people aren't going to subscribe and people aren't going to be spending their hard-earned cash monthly in order to keep this subscription service. Like if you had Netflix and Netflix didn't give you new movies or new shows, you would cancel it, right? I will most definitely cancel Xbox Game Pass if they didn't keep coming out with new games. So the only real way Xbox could achieve this is to actually buy up other video game makers. They have to buy them, and then they get their IPs, and then they get new IPs, and then they're able to put that stuff onto the Game Pass platform. And games like possibly, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but possibly games like Call of Duty and Diablo, if there's a new one, will start ending up on Game Pass day one, and you won't have to go out and purchase and buy these. So if you can imagine, I mean, Xbox buying these game companies and these games, I mean, that gives them more power, more leverage as far as selling their Xbox Game Pass platform. That gives them more leverage. You know, hey, we got this game coming out in February and then March and then April, and you guys can kind of see the progression. Look, gaming as a service is going to be the next big thing. It's going to be gaming as a service. Game Pass is a service. PlayStation Now, PlayStation Plus, that's a service. It's a service. We're paying for it monthly. This is something that we just don't pay a one-time fee for. We have to keep paying for this thing monthly. And Microsoft is like the king of making you pay for things monthly in order to keep using it. Netflix, Amazon Prime. Come on, I mean, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. And there's no denying that this is going to be the future of gaming. I don't believe that there are going to be any physical copies of a game for you to go out and actually buy. It's all going to be like you download this stuff from their servers and then you're able to play it. And if you have the subscription service, okay, great. But if you don't have the subscription service, then you have to go out and go onto the system and actually pay your money in order to play the games. That's what we're coming to. That's just what we have nowadays as this gaming as a service. You have Google Stadia also. That's another one. You know, Amazon has their Luna. So it's happening. It's going to happen. It's just who is going to take advantage and pay the money to acquire these gaming companies, Microsoft, PlayStation, maybe Nintendo, and make this a viable option for them in the future. Microsoft is doing it. They've been doing it. I mean, they've really swung big, and they're doubling down really hard this particular console generation. Now, I'm not saying we should write off Nintendo and PlayStation because Nintendo and PlayStation actually are number one and number two as far as market share. Xbox is like fourth, and with the acquisition of Bethesda and Activision, they're like only third now. It's ridiculous. But if you guys can remember last console generation, I mean, Xbox got trounced, and the one reason why Xbox kept getting trounced and beaten by PlayStation and even Nintendo, or the one statement everybody said, Xbox doesn't have games. It didn't really have games outside of Halo, Gears of War. We had a couple of Forza Horizons. Name another Xbox game that was an Xbox exclusive from last console generation that would have prompted you to get up and buy an Xbox console. I'll wait. There weren't really any. There weren't. So that's fresh in the mind of Xbox and Phil Spencer. That's fresh in their mind. So Xbox doesn't want to sit here and say, well, we're just going to twiddle our thumbs again this particular time around and see what happens. I mean, we know last console generation, everyone said we didn't have games. So I guess we got to fix that. And they are fixing that in a major, major way with the acquisition of all of these video game companies. Now, I will say when the Xbox Series X and S first came out, I said Xbox again doesn't have any games because Halo was supposed to release on day one. It didn't happen, and Forza didn't happen. I mean, all these games kept getting pushed back for the new console. And when the new console released, I mean, what games did you really have? You had NBA 2K, you had Call of Duty, and then you had Watch Dogs. None of those were like first-party exclusive games. None of those games were on Game Pass day one. None of those games were like, yeah, I'm going to go out and buy a Xbox. I mean, if I could play all those games on PlayStation. I mean, just to be honest, I could. And I felt buying this Xbox Series X, I guess I got it because I really wanted to be one of the early adopters, but I didn't really put much thought into the games I would be playing on it. Outside of old Xbox One games. I mean, that's not what you buy a new console for. But I will say this, Xbox has bolstered its offering of games. This particular time around, Game Pass is flourishing. I mean, there are lots of games coming out for the Game Pass platform, day one releases. And I think that this model of Game Pass may be sustainable in the future. I mean, it seems like it's going to be viable. And it's going to seem like it's something that's going to stick around for a long period of time. Gaming as a service. It's happening. It's going to happen. That's just the way it's going to be. That's going to be the future. And I believe we should just adopt it now because I don't think we're going to see many more physical copies of video games in the future. There's already a discless PS5. Xbox Series S has no disc. Nintendo Switch, of course, it takes little cartridges, but still, you can still download to the memory on your Nintendo Switch. So I think that's going to happen. So this has been Patrick with Patch Tech Review. Peace.